Welcome back to the Casey Adams Show. Today I am joined by Albert Preciado, the CEO of the Mortgage Guys, as well as many other companies. Albert, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thank you for having me, Casey. So
Of
excited.
course, of course, man. I feel like we have so many similar circles and friends, and I've seen your content for quite some time, and we were able to meet again at the event last week at David's
Yeah,
place, and I've always just loved like the message that you share on social, and not only the story, but how you show up, from how you dress to like how you speak, and I want to take a quick step back to give people the context of what got you into the mortgage business overall, entrepreneurship, and really where did this journey begin for you?
yeah. Well, Casey, thank you for having me. And first of all, I just want to say how much I like your stuff and I like what you do. Like you're
Appreciate it.
very young and you're making moves young, so the future looks bright.
Thank
So
you.
you're the next generation. So
I
uh,
appreciate you so much.
thanks for doing what you're doing. And then I got started because my parents, I remember like it was yesterday. I'm 6 years old, and they're shopping for homes in Burbank. You know Burbank?
Yeah.
So Burbank in 1990 used to have homes for like 85,000. So they were shopping
Wow.
for homes in 1990 for 85,000, and they had a realtor that sucked, and they had a mortgage guy that sucked, and because of that, they weren't able to get the house. And I remember they
Mhm.
were so excited, and then the realtor wouldn't show up. I don't know if he was hungover or I don't know what was going on, but the realtor would be there late, wouldn't show up. And then the old school homes, they have like the dog hole where like the
Yeah.
dogs go in through the little hole, the
Yep.
square. So like I went in through there and opened the door, so that's how we saw our home. So I was
No
kind of like a
way.
realtor at six, but
Wow.
they were never able to get a house. So later on, when I'm 20 years old, 19, 20 years old,
Yeah.
I used to go out a lot with my friend Felipe. So we used to
Okay.
go out, party. We used to go to UCLA and go to those the parties they have there,
Yeah.
and sometimes we would go to clubs, things like that, and we would end up like hungover in the morning at IHOP because we would go there in IHOP and you have the
Yeah.
breakfast and you kind of recover, drink a lot of water, and I would always see like these young guys that would show up there, and they were also hungover, but they had like the hottest girl you can imagine, like perfect 10 model, and they had a Rolex like yours, and then they had like a Mercedes S Class or BMW 7 Series. So I'm thinking like what's going on? Why are we in the wrong side of hungover? And I'm like, hey, so it's Felipe, but I call him Johnny. So I was like, hey, Johnny, how come, like, what are we doing wrong? Like, man, these guys, like, we keep showing up here and they're rich and they have a hot girl, and they have a nice car. Like, what are we doing wrong? So long story short, after 3 times that I see like different guys with different chicks and nice cars, I'm like, hey, what do you do? And he tells me, oh, we're in real estate. I'm like, oh, real estate. I'm like,
Hmm.
how do you do that? Kind of like the Wolf of
Yeah.
Wall Street movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like show
And,
me a pay
and,
stub,
and
and
I'm
now I'll
like,
quit my job.
yeah, and I'm like, so what do you need for that? And he's like, just get a real estate license. It's easy. In 3 months, you're licensed. You start making money. You make $10,000, $20,000 commission checks. So that was said, and I took action. I got
Wow.
into real estate, and I
At the
started making
time,
money.
just for context, like
Yeah,
what were you doing then, or what were maybe some? Did you have aspirations to be in business, or was this just an opportunity that stemmed from like curiosity of
yeah.
asking questions and wanting to learn more about what other people are up to?
I've always been big on asking questions. Like I get on people's nerves. I get on my wife's nerves because she's always like, stop asking questions. But I'll ask questions. Like I'll ask the stupidest question, but once. Like I don't repeat the same question over and over again. Most people do, but I'm very curious. So I just ask a lot of questions, and so I was asking these people the questions, and then I didn't know about how much wealth I wanted, but I just wanted to be like a millionaire. Back then,
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be a millionaire one day and have my dream life, have like a nice house with a big yard, a dog,
Yeah.
having the cars. And back then, when I was younger, I never wanted to get married. Like I never thought about being married or having kids or none of that. I wanted to
Okay.
be single the whole time and
Wow.
be like a Dan Bilzerian. That
Oh
that was my
man.
my idea when I was younger, right? But then that changed later
Yeah.
on. But that's what I wanted: money, woman, and I was gonna be the Casanova. But later on, I matured and I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes too.
Yeah. I remember hearing, whether in a different interview or during research, that like through that period where your parents were looking for homes, they like ended up not being able to get a mortgage, and this sort of stemmed your want to go get into the business. Is that correct?
Yeah, it made me, well, I wanted to get into real estate because I wanted to make money.
Yeah.
But then when they told me, hey, with the same license, you could also do mortgages. That's when I
Yeah.
said, okay, you know what? I'm going to do mortgages and I'm going to do them right. I'm going to help people because, see, my parents are Mexican. So they're immigrants from Mexico and they came here for the American dream.
Hmm.
So most 99% of the Latinos here in the US, they think that all they can reach is probably like going to college, getting a degree and
Yeah.
making their 60,000 salary, 70,000 salary, maybe even 100K salary. But we, like my people, we don't think about like, hey, what if you become an entrepreneur? What if you
Yeah.
read books, do self-improvement? What if you invest? Like, what if you have $10,000, $20,000 and you go broke and you invest that money into learning so that you can become a millionaire one day, so you can open up a business. And most of the Latinos here, they just believe that they need to invest in college
Yeah.
and get a college degree, and that's going to be the way. But I realized that very soon, especially when I had a teacher assistant job. I was a teacher assistant. I was making
Wow.
$9 an hour, and I loved helping the kids,
Yeah.
but I just hated the way the teacher treated me. Like it was
Yeah.
just torture every day.
This was when, during teenage years or
When I was 20.
20?
So
Okay.
when I was 19, actually, I was 19. I was a teacher assistant at
Okay.
Toluca Lake
Wow.
Elementary School, and I was already studying for my real estate. Like I was
Got
taking
it.
my real estate courses and all that.
Yeah.
And I had a girlfriend back then that her brother owned a mortgage company. So it's a lot of stuff that was going
Of
on.
course.
But that's where I started my journey in mortgage.
That's so, I one of my favorite, not only quotes, but just like, you can never connect the dots looking forward, only looking backwards. And when it comes to your journey of the mortgage business, but now like bringing it back to current day in terms of all the content you put out, the events that you've hosted. I'm a huge proponent of what I call like, what is your I like the question of like, what is your platform? For
Yeah.
me in life, coming from a small town in Virginia, shout out Chesterfield. I remember being 16 years old, and I talked about this at the event last week, in a neck brace, nearly paralyzed, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, no business relationships. And for me, I remember, a mentor that I didn't know at the time, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Hmm.
I was reading his book, and the last chapter was podcasting. And for me, I looked at that as an outlet to meet great people, hopefully learn from them, and create business opportunities. And I found that through doing so, we were talking about right beforehand how, like, coming up on 7 years of hosting the show. The first 90 days of hosting my show, I did 60 interviews all online, and that for me just created a platform to meet and learn from so many great people. And of course, in the world of social, collaborate with and post content with. And I've always loved not only hosting events, but going to events. And you've had the opportunity to have so many wonderful people, speakers at your events. Maybe catch me up to speed and catch the audience up to speed of Driven and where you spent, like, what is that business for those that may not know, as well as the events that you guys host, because I know you have some incredible names that come and speak at these
Yeah.
events.
Well, think about Grant Cardone and the 10X conference. So like Driven conference, Driven events, they're
Yeah.
like 1 year after Grant. So we're 1 year behind the 10X conference. So Grant was one of my mentors like 11 years ago. So was Patrick Bet-David.
Yeah.
So Grant Cardone, I went to his first seminar that he had, but it was a small one, 35 people in Cancun. So I
Okay.
went there, and that's where I met him. And I met him first reading a book. So I read the
Okay.
book, how to sell or be, not sell or be sold. It was Sell to Survive,
Mm.
and it was like his original book. I believe it's that one, Sell
Okay.
to Survive. And I just started listening to him. He did a few YouTube. He had like a YouTube show and all that stuff. So I just liked his energy and I liked his aggressiveness. And I still like Grant, by the way. Like I like what he does. I like his style. I learned a lot from the man, and he taught me like 10x, do more, grow your army, take risks, massive action, sales, marketing. So I got that, and that worked. So that got me from like 300,000 to about 1.8 million dollars in mortgages. Then I was stuck. So I'm like, wait, Grant can't show me any more. Like I got this down already, but I need to learn more of the business side. So
Yeah.
I wanted to, because most people focus on sales and marketing, but you'll never scale it if you don't have the right operation systems processes. So then I looked into Patrick Bet-David because I was following a lot,
Yeah.
and I said, you know what, I got to hire this guy because I want to learn operations, systems, processes.
Yeah.
So I went to Patrick, and I have a method, a story of how I got in front of Patrick. But long story short, I paid him $10,000 for 4 one-on-one sessions,
Okay.
which included like dinner at his house, lunch, hanging out. Like it was just like I
Wow.
got a deal.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Uh,
nowadays probably a lot more.
Yes, multiple six figures. Yeah, but I got that from him, and I think those two investments at an early age helped me become who I am now.
Wow.
And because I got such great results, I kept investing in other mentors.
Yeah.
And the reason why we started the Driven event was because Grant, I was like his best mentee. I was like, from those 35 people,
Yeah.
like you'll ask him, hey, Albert Syl, is he your best mentee? He'll give you a smirk and he'll probably tell you something funny. But I asked Grant, hey Grant, can I speak on stage? He's like, nah, man, nah, you got to make 1 million. So then I made 1 million. I came back to him and I'm like, hey Grant, can I speak on stage? I broke 2 million. He's like, nah, you're not ready. And I'm like, dude, why? Like you said, if I make it's the second time. He said, well, you don't have an audience. You know, he said like Lewis House has an audience. There was a bunch of other
Yeah.
speakers that spoke at the first 10x Growth
Yep.
Con, and many others, many speakers that didn't have a business like me, that where their business was making millions, but they were just big on YouTube, on social media.
Yeah.
I think we had Instagram was barely starting back then, Facebook, but they had a big audience, and they told me, and I understood it. He basically told me like, Albert, doesn't matter how intelligent you are in business and how many millions you're making, you're not going to help sell tickets. So then I realized, shit, like it makes sense. There's boxers that are really good and dangerous, but nobody wants to fight them because they can't sell tickets.
Yeah.
Like Cuban fighters are really good in boxing, but nobody wants to fight them because they have everything to lose and nothing to gain.
Yeah.
So the big tickets, like you have the Canelo, the Mayweather, the Oscar de la Hoya, like those fighters that can sell tickets, Ryan Garcia,
Yep.
Logan Paul,
Yeah.
Jake Paul.
Yeah,
It
that's
doesn't.
it
You
nowadays.
don't have to be
Jake.
good. Yeah, you don't have to be good. You just have to be famous. So he told me that, and I said, "Fuck," I was mad, and I said, "Well," and so I made the decision. Well, screw trying to be on the 10x conference. I'm going to start my own stage. So I started
Yeah.
my own stage, and it took me 3 months to. I made a commitment. We're gonna have it in 3 months, just like Grant did it in 3 months, and then I hired Grant Cardone to speak at my first event,
That's incredible.
and I used him to sell tickets because he said, "Well, you need to have an audience." I'm like, "Well, he has an audience, so I'll use him to sell tickets," and then that's how I started my brand. And then we now we're 9 years later. Now we're
Wow.
having Driven 9, March 29, which is gonna be my birthday
Incredible.
weekend.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's so incredible. I was just gonna ask. So this is 9 years ago when you had that first event. What, in terms of I think nowadays, and we have again lots of mutuals. Dan Fleischman, they have their like whole business event series. In the world of social and branding, in your opinion, like what has changed the most in terms of your strategy of content? Because I think nowadays there's more people building brands than ever,
Yeah.
and I think there's obviously strategies that people can take away. But for you, that's been in the game for so long in terms of social. What's changed for you over the years in terms of how you and the team approach brand building, content, and all of the more so processes behind it?
Well, it's important to catch the trend early. So when you catch the trend early, you're gonna get 100 times the results as
Yeah.
versus like people that are trying to get into social media now, because you're barely starting right now. But I think people now, if they have the right mentor that can show them how to do it, I think what took, for example, me 10 years, they can do it in 12 months, because now it's very easy to go viral. And if
Yeah.
you go viral, you'll make a lot of money. Like there's TikTok girls, there's like OnlyFans girls that are they're making more money than professional basketball players and football players.
Yeah.
So like that shows, and they're 19 years old, 18 years old. So that shows you like how much money you can make if you build a brand, but you have to know
I
how
don't
to
think
do
that's
it.
the most.
Yeah.
I mean, I think on my viewpoint, I'm like, you see those out there, and it's like there's a lot of drawbacks, though, especially like that whole industry itself. But I get it. I think there's like the reference of context is like
Yeah.
in the world of social and having an audience, depending on how you choose to monetize it.
Yeah.
Like the vehicle is so important,
Yeah.
in my opinion, in terms of like how you go about doing it. And I think something that Gary talks about a lot, Gary Vee, is like it's the long game in the world of social. There's so many people that just want to do things quick. Not to say that's the wrong perspective. It's just my like POV is things shift, things change, and the world of like growth and reputation and how that translates to the real world.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know your viewpoint on like modern strategies in terms of building a team in person. I know you guys have an office here in West Hollywood.
Yeah.
How have you gone about building a team culture based on, I'm sure the brand brings a lot of people in through like they want
Yeah.
to work with you, they want to learn more
Yeah.
and all that type of stuff. How's that translated to in how you view leadership in building a team?
Well, you touched a bunch of very, very important things in business. Like our mission is to.
I'm Albert Syl. If you like what you're watching and you want to learn from an entrepreneur that built 8 companies and makes over $30 million a year, text me at 213-277-6208 and let's make it happen.
Change a billion lives. So if you focus on changing lives, billions will come. So we always talk about like we're not selling and making money, collecting a commission. We're changing lives. So if you change lives, like you don't really see like, oh, you're charging people money. No, you're changing their lives.
Yeah.
And then your vision. What is your vision? So when your vision, culture, leadership, it's very important. And when you build a brand, like we were talking about, a brand that an OnlyFans model has versus a brand that like a business professional has is very different. So like I learned a lot that, hey, you know what, my brand has to have I have to keep my credibility. I have reputation. I have to lead by example. I have 3 daughters, so one's going to be 8, one's just turned 5, one's going to turn 2, and thank you. And like I don't want them to. I want to be a leader for them, right? And so that's very important. But when you master culture, leadership, you start getting the right people in your business. People want you to start attracting people. So it's very important. Right now I'm very excited because we built a sales army and it's growing every day. It's growing. They're doing really good. And we have 30 crazy maniacs. They're making 3,000 calls a day.
Wow.
And you can imagine the revenue they're bringing in for all the companies because it's an ecosystem. So we have the whole Driven brand, which we have Driven Mortgage, Driven Real Estate. We have an escrow company. And so everything's going to be Driven. Driven's going to be the next Virgin. You know Virgin Airlines, right?
Of course. Richard Branson. He's like one of my favorite entrepreneurs. Like his 2 biographies are just, I could not put him down.
But you know the difference between him and other owners of airlines? Like, for example, Delta Airlines. Do you know the founder and CEO? What about United?
Yeah.
What about Spirit? Delta? Nobody, right? But you know who is the owner. You know who's the leader of Virgin Airlines?
Yeah.
Richard Branson. Because he built a brand, and now Virgin has so many products. They sell everything.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that I love about Richard Branson personally is, like, in his book, I guess I could say the one thing that stood out was like during all the craziness of building his businesses, he was going on these crazy hot air balloon expeditions. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah.
So there was a couple times where it's like near death experiences. He was in these hot air balloons. He literally flew around the world in
he's
a
crazy.
hot air balloon. And I remember there's one point where like the hot air balloon's approaching the ocean and his partner who was with him, like, it's about to crash. His partner like jumps out thinking it's about to hit the ocean. And then the wind gust catches it and then it brings him back up. And sadly his partner died. But it's just, I found it so bizarre. And it's kind of like that mental shift of like, wow, everyone tries to find time maybe to do things that they enjoy doing, or people talk about balance, which is I personally think is a very challenging problem and question. But for someone like Richard, it's just he's lived his life while he's built his businesses, and it appears effortlessly. But you read his book, and I think it's something that I always recommend is just the essence of living inside of the greatness you've created, and not thinking it has to be like binary black and white in terms of how you approach business in life. And I think he's broken the mold for not only myself, but a lot of great founders out there.
Yeah.
So
I love that because that's the way we live our life. Like me and Syl, and we teach our people. We have a lot of people that we employ, and we believe that you don't have to wait. You don't have to pay now and play later. Like we believe in paying now and playing now. Mm-hmm. I don't want to wait till I'm 60 or older and I can't even get on a private jet. I can't even get inside a Ferrari. I can't put my little kids on my back.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to play and pay as I live.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking about Driven as a brand, and the comparisons to Virgin. A quote that I love that I think you'd appreciate. When I interviewed Larry King, he had a quote. I asked him like, what makes people great? I remember it very vividly. He says, "Greatness is driven."
Hmm.
That was his one-liner, and he took a step back and referenced all the presidents he interviewed, all the athletes and celebrities, and he says, you could be great at what you do, but if you are not driven to like really, I don't want to say just work hard, but that word driven, I think, is so important as a character trait
Yeah.
in great people, and I'm curious to know what that word means to you.
If you want me to like say how to reach your dreams in one word, it's you have to be driven. Like driven. That's why we named it Driven. And like I've heard from David Goggins to Steve Jobs to like Bill Gates, they've all said, if you look at Jeff Bezos, everybody you can imagine. Like if you look at interviews, just Google their name and Driven, and you'll find
Yeah.
videos where they're saying like the reason why I'm successful is because you got to be driven. Like, you just Google it
Yeah.
and you'll find it, and everybody says that. Like everybody says like you got to be driven, because if you don't have drive, you're not going to get far. And like for like Syl was telling me today, she was asking me, we're driving over here, and she's like, hey, you're happy, huh? And because I get excited and I get happy, but then I shut it down. I shut it off, because we always increase our targets. So when you accomplish a goal, we immediately aim for a higher goal, and that keeps us like always like very very hungry. And one of the things that I believe in is, if you want to be great, if like you want to be driven, you got to have three things. You always have to remain humble, hungry, and coachable, because most people with, especially when you're a big
Yeah.
ego, high ego person, you lose one of those. You lose the hunger, you become uncoachable,
Hmm.
and you get comfortable. So it's very important to always remain and have those three things.
Yeah. I love that word, coachability, and I think it's like growing up as an athlete, played sports my whole life. Um, that word, like being coachable, is I think so apparent in terms of the world of athletics. And nowadays, I'm curious to know, like in your life, how do you feel, or how do you continue to be coachable? And maybe what are some examples that you try to live by, whether that's people,
Yeah,
mentors, or just how do you remain coachable in your own
yeah,
life?
brother. 2021, like 2021, it was the first year that I made over $30 million,
Wow.
and then the next 12 months, I saw a big drop. Next 12 months, another big drop. So 2 years were like just it was, and it was the economy just got bad. We went from having 2% interest rates after COVID,
Yeah.
like we had like almost 0% interest rates
Yeah.
for mortgages.
Yeah.
So like everybody was buying homes, everybody was selling, so much
Yeah.
business. People were getting loans, free money, free checks, refinances. Everybody. So just think about like think about somebody that you know, because you seem, you're like a super nice guy. So I don't even think you have anybody that you think is dumb. But just think about like the person that's the least smart that you ever met in your life. Like just think about somebody that, oh, you're like, man, this
Yeah.
person doesn't have a brain. So in 2021, people like that were selling real estate and making a lot of money, and they were doing mortgages, making a lot of money. As soon as it got harder, those people were wiped out. They quit. I don't know. They got a heart attack. They I don't know. They just it was so hard. And when they're used to making so much money, and they stop
Yeah.
making money like that, it becomes really, it's like a big reality check. So what happened is I started losing people. They were going to another company
Yeah.
that would pay them a little higher split. They were blaming everything, like, oh, it's Albert's fault, it's Syl's fault. They don't know how to run the business. It's the company's fault. And so me, instead of being, no, they're crazy, they're dumb, whatever. Like I said, you know what? I looked in the mirror and I said, it's my fault. So how do I fix this? Before we go out of business or I lose all the money, let me hire the best leadership coach.
Hmm.
So I went out there and I hired John Maxwell. So I paid
Wow.
John Maxwell $400,000,
Wow.
and that includes, the reason why it's 400K is because it included private jet flights for him, because he doesn't fly
Wow.
commercial, and his plane broke down. Because I was going to pay for his plane, but his plane broke down, so I got him a plane, and then that plane broke down. I had to get another plane,
Oh my
and
gosh.
so I mean, it was worth every single penny times 10. But I got one-on-one sessions with him. I flew to see him. He flew here. He was part
That's
of one of my
incredible.
driven events. So I learned a lot. I spent a lot of time with John Maxwell. I spent a lot of time with Les Brown too.
That's
So, but
incredible.
John Maxwell told me like, hey, like one of the things that two things that he told me that changed my life. A leader that has not been tested cannot be trusted. So
Mm,
I've been tested, like I'm tested
yeah,
every single year. I have a new test.
absolutely.
And Ed Milet, another friend of mine, he told me that one day your biggest test will be your testimony. And I always think about it. I was going to send him a
Whoa.
video right now
Yeah.
on the drive because every minute it just goes so fast. But I was going to tell him, hey, remember when you told me your biggest test will one day be your testimony? I'll send it to him
Yeah.
later.
That's
But the
great.
other thing that John Maxwell told me was he said, always give, give, give. Because I used to be the guy, and I'm still the guy, that me and my wife, we give our employees Chanel bags, Rolexes, private flights. We pay for their vacation, 5-star hotels. We 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 give so much, and then sometimes they leave, they
Yeah.
betray us, they lie to us. And I asked John Maxwell, hey, should I stop that? He's like, no, Albert, keep being the good-hearted man you are. Just give, 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 and more good people will come, and some bad
Yeah.
people will leave. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
So those two things from John Maxwell and many
That's so
many
cool to
more other
hear.
things, they help me with my leadership.
That's so good. It's so cool to hear that. John Maxwell, I mean, icon, legend. Like when you are now working with these people and like taking us back to that morning of you're at the IHOP asking
Yeah,
the guys the
yeah.
questions. Like, what do you say to your younger self about the life you live today? Like, what would the young Albert, 20, 21 years old, sitting at the IHOP think about his life today?
He would be very very proud of Albert. But I don't regret anything because I had a lot of fun. I could have died many times, but it brings back to God. Like I believe in God. Like I feel like God is watching me, and he brought me to this world because he wants me to change a billion lives. Like I really believe that because whenever things get really really hard, I don't even flinch anymore because I know God's gonna create luck for me.
Yeah.
Like everything's going wrong, and you think, and that's why they say that in the hardest darkest times, that brings the best out of you. The easy
Mm,
times make you weaker. So
yeah.
so hard times create the greats, and easy times create weak people. So
Yeah.
I love that. And just going back really quick to the driven story, the first driven event, I had Grant Cardone, Elena Cardone, I had Brad Lee. I put out that event with credit cards. I applied to
Wow.
Chase, B of A, increased my limits,
Yeah.
got still some credit cards, got my dad some credit
Oh
cards,
man.
maxed out all of them. 300,000 later,
Wow.
had the event, and that event was the start of everything.
Wow.
So most people don't take risks
Yeah.
because they don't believe in their ability to produce.
That is, there's, I get the chills. Yesterday, I did a virtual interview with, are you familiar with the company Remedy Place? They have a location in West Hollywood. Are you familiar?
Not no, I'm not.
Okay, it's like a social wellness
Yeah,
club. They've
yeah,
built an incredible brand where you can go in there and get like lymphatic drainage, the cold plunges, the saunas, like, but it's like a very curated community. And then they have two locations in New York, and we were talking yesterday, and again, like they've built this big business now. And he said it was 2019. They had this big launch party, and he was like so invested into it. Took out he personally guaranteed this like super expensive lease in West Hollywood, like this big location, and they launched like literally tail end of 2019, and then COVID happens
yeah,
after
yeah.
this, it's when I was talking to him, it highlighted that like, yes, you took a risk, but you never know the outcome or never know what's in front of you, and it's through the dark times, it's through the times when you get punched in the face where you learn what it really takes.
Right.
And I'm curious to know from you because obviously whenever you hear real estate, I'm 24 for context. Like I was 8 years old in 2008. I wasn't really aware of what was going on, the economy, all the stuff that
Yeah.
happened then. Like I know that was a huge moment for not only yourself but anyone that was working in real estate and mortgages during that time. And I think it'd be valuable to kind of take us back to that era of real estate, of, I know you referenced like 2021 when things kind of shifted,
Yeah.
but like bring us back to maybe some of the like the dark times and what you learned through those moments about yourself, about business, and
Yeah.
just about the world overall.
Well, there's been three recessions, three dark times in my life as a business guy. 2023, one of the worst years ever, recession. 2020, I believe, COVID, another recession, bad times. 2008, that was the first one. 2008, I was self-employed, so I was.
I'm Albert Preciado. If you like what you're watching and you want to learn from an entrepreneur that built 8 companies and makes over $30 million a year, text me at 213-277-6208 and let's make it happen.
I was making $260,000 a year. I was 21, 22, 23. And then when I turned 24, that's when everything started falling apart, because that was 2007 leading into 2008. And I was like, I was just a player. I was going out, and I was not cheating because I never told the girl that, hey, you're my girlfriend. I was dating, and I had like 10 girls on rotation, and I'm addicted to cocaine. I'm drinking, partying from Monday through Sunday, and I'm losing it all. I already was losing everything, so I said I'm just gonna party like a rock star because maybe I'm gonna die.
Wow.
So when that happens, I lose everything, and I remember that like 2008, they foreclosed one house. They repossessed my Mercedes S550.
Wow.
They're foreclosing on the only house that I have left, which was my main house, and so I have nothing. And I had 10 girls on rotation. One of them was Syl, my wife now. So I reach out to her, and I'm like, because I started thinking like, which one do I want to keep? And I said, well, I like Syl because she likes to work out. That's a check, because there's 3 checks for me. If to find my perfect woman needs to have these 3 checks. So young men, write down the checklist. They need to be willing to work out. They need to be into fitness, working out. Number 2, they got to be into self-improvement. They have to be willing to read books, go to seminars with you.
Yeah.
And number 3, they have to be hard workers. So they have to meet you at work. Some days you're gonna be working till 11 p.m. They have to be okay with working hard and supporting you and helping you at work. So those 3 things. So she was that. She had those 3 checks. So I said, this girl I don't want to lose. So I called her and I said, hey, you know what? I'm losing it all, and I don't have anything else. Like, but I'll figure it out. I'm not gonna quit mortgage. I'm gonna stay in mortgage. So she picks me up, and we have no place to stay. So I go back to my parents and I tell them, hey, you know what? I got to pick up my old car, the Ford Explorer again. So I pick up my Ford Explorer, which we were always running out of gas because the gas meter didn't work. So we didn't know if we had a full tank or half, or so it would run out of gas in the freeway.
Wow.
And we would ride down the hill. It was a crazy car, but I told Syl, well, we're gonna figure it out. You got a super key, because realtors have super keys, which open homes for sale. So I said, some days we'll just open a mansion and sleep there. Some other days we'll just sleep in the Ford Explorer, and we'll figure it out.
Wow.
Crash sofas, whatever. So we did that for 2 months. 2 months, our home was really a Ford Explorer.
Wow.
So we'd just park, and people say, you know what, rock bottom, you hit rock bottom. It was not rock bottom. Like most mortgage people, they got out of mortgages and they started doing insurance. They got jobs.
Yeah.
I told her, I'm gonna ride mortgages. Like I like mortgages.
Yeah.
So we would sleep in the Ford Explorer, park in front of the beach, Newport Beach, Corona del Mar. We would go to Beverly Hills, and the Ford Explorer, like the way it's built, it's incredible. Like we would, you could imagine, we would spend lovely nights, but the way they designed the car, like the like all the components, and you could put your leg here, your arm here. It's made for sex.
The Ford
So
Explorer.
we had a lot of fun.
Talk about a testimonial for Ford Explorer.
We had a lot of fun there, and if you're a bigger guy, Expedition works just as good.
Oh man, I mean, and just having the it's hilarious, the context of like where you are now, the businesses, the ups and downs, and like the ability to go through the different, like the battles, right? Whether that's like not having a place to sleep, to owning a place in Bel Air, to having this big mortgage company. It's like you said earlier, like the leader needs to be tested
Yeah.
before he's trusted. And I think it's one of those, those sayings that is so true. And, there's one person that I always love bringing up is a guy who unfortunately has now passed away. He was someone that I had on my show years ago. His name's Trevor Moawad, and he was Russell Wilson, the NFL quarterback. He was his brain coach, and he has this book called Getting to Neutral.
Yeah.
And it applies to sports, but it's how you apply this principle to like every aspect of life, where he says, like when things are great, figure out a way to get to neutral because they're not as great as it seems.
Right.
And then when things are terrible, that's when a lot of people, are just so down they can't get out of that rut. But like same thing, find a way to get to neutral and don't let the bad become so bad and don't let the good become so good.
Right.
And the ability to stay in that net neutral mentality, especially in the game of business and in sports where you can't let the play in the past affect the next one. I feel that based on how you're telling this story and like how I know how you show up, like it seems that you had that like natural ability to stay in the neutral sense of like things are terrible, but we're gonna get through it. Things are great. I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Like you gotta humble yourself and to stay in this mindset of like things may or may not get worse, and you gotta stay in that. So I'm curious to know how you think about that aspect of staying neutral and weathering the storm through the good and the bad.
Bro, like I've been like an inch of going out of business 3 times, and I show up to the office and act like a boss and tell everybody like remind them of the vision. This is where we're going. Everything is easy, under control. Everything is figured out. We're going to get to this. We're blowing up. And everybody's like, yeah. And I raise their energy. And that's what leadership is. When times are the worst, you got to show up like you're a billionaire. When you're a billionaire, you got to show up like you're broke, like you're going out of business. Like somebody's right behind you. What does Mark Cuban say? Somebody's right behind you, waiting to kick your ass when you get comfortable.
Yeah.
So you can't ever get comfortable. Like I remember, like when I was broke, I never want to be like that again. I want to be able to help my parents. My parents, I don't know how many years they have left. They're not the healthiest, so I want to make sure that they see as many wins while they're alive and healthy, before it's too late. So like I'll never get comfortable. I have a poker face. People never know how I feel. People never know if I'm happy, if I'm sad, if I'm worried, if I'm not. But that's all mental.
Yeah.
It's mindset is powerful. If you believe you can do something, it doesn't matter what people say.
Yeah.
You only need one person to believe in you, and that's yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. In terms of, you say poker face. Was that always the case, like growing up, in terms of, being able to like, I don't want to say like hold things in, but like remain neutral in terms of emotions or how you show up in the world? Like, has that always been the case for you?
No, I think as I got more experience, I got more experience. I got more mentorship. I read more books. People didn't believe in me. Going through elementary school, middle school, high school, a lot of betrayals, a lot of criticism, a lot of people telling me that I can't do it, making fun of me. I'm a former ESL student, so I didn't learn English till I was like 6, 7.
Wow.
I'm a former special ed student. So people always told me like,
Wow.
oh, that's the dumb kid. He's never going to do anything. People graduated from college. I'm a college dropout, 1.8 GPA in high school.
Wow.
And so everybody was like, he's the dummy kid. He's the Dumbo. So like that, I think I grew up with a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah, the thick skin.
And I said, oh, all right. And so I worked really hard in all the things that I wasn't good at. And I improved. I just believe that every day you could improve 1%.
Absolutely. No, it's so cool to hear that perspective. I want to talk about something I love discussing, and I think it's relevant to this. So you're coming up on the Driven event next year. You said it'll be the 9th one.
Mm-hmm.
What are you most looking forward to about not only that event, but within the next year, 2025, and in the year to come?
Well, the next year's Driven event, I want to have it at the Dodger Stadium, and I want to have 15,000 people.
Wow.
And it's going to be huge. And next year we're going to shock the world. Like we're going to shock the world. Like we're gonna do something massive. Like I can't quite say it right now, but
Yeah,
but
of
I have a plan that's gonna work. And in the next 3 years we'll exit from a company, and it's gonna be a pretty big exit.
I love that. That's exciting, man.
We're gonna change 1 billion lives in the
Yeah,
next 3 years.
that is so exciting. And hearing just even to that event. I mean, Dodger Stadium. Come on, that would be iconic.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it all
What you
come
put
together.
out in the air, it happens. If you're around negative people, gossipers, time wasters, low energy people, you're gonna become like them. If you're around people with high energy, people that don't gossip, people that have uh, that think really big, if you're around billionaires, you're gonna become like them. If you say it out in the world, if you wake up and you're saying, I'm gonna be a billionaire, I'm gonna be a billionaire, I'm gonna be a billionaire, I'm gonna have a private jet, I'm gonna have a private jet, I'm gonna have the car of my dreams, I'm gonna give my parents millions of dollars, I'm gonna change the world, versus I'm gonna make I'm gonna do well. Man, it's tough right now. Economy's not good, and then you're hanging out with Mrs. Gossiper, Mrs. Chismosa.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what that means, but you're hanging around with people that are just so down in energy,
Yeah.
and they have no time to work on themselves and make their own future and make their own success, create their own success. And they're so busy thinking about others. They wake up thinking about other people. They're criticizing people that are winning, people that are making big moves. Like if you're around all that stuff, no wonder you're still stuck in the rat race.
Yeah.
So like I like to put out things out there in the air, and then I just go out there and I make it happen. Because now if I don't make it happen, people are gonna be like, oh, he didn't make it happen. So I'm gonna make sure that I make those things that I say happen.
I love that. That's so exciting. A couple more questions before we wrap up here, Albert. I'm when I think about your like just the story and what we covered today, like this idea of mentorship not only keeps coming up, but it's so important to me. I know it's so important to you. When it comes to your mentors today, who were some like key figures in your life that you continue to learn from and that truly inspire you to become that next best version of yourself?
I learn from everybody. I learn from 24-year-olds. I learn from kids. I learn from my parents. I still learn from all of those people.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everybody has some, like my daughter Italia, she'll question some stuff that I do. And I'm like, damn, I just learned something. You're right. I have a 24-year-old that came into our life recently. You met him. His name is Casey.
Oh yeah, Casey.
And he brought the blueprint on how to build a sales army. And I learned from him. I'm like, all right, we're gonna use your strengths, combine them with my strengths, and we're gonna blow this up. We're gonna use our brand, and everything's gonna work. And that was a great that was something great that happened.
That's so cool to hear.
And then on the other side, yes, I do have a friend. I'm not gonna say his net worth, but I think you could piece it together. But I have a really good friend, one of my best friends right now. And he's local. We have dinner all the time. We have lunch all the time, and I learned so much from him. His name is Neil Patel. So Neil Patel, he's a wizard.
Absolutely.
And I get to spend a lot of time with him. And a lot of people don't know how successful he is, but I appreciate him, and I learn so much from him.
I love all this content.
And all that's, you always have to remain coachable.
Yeah.
I'm Albert Syl. If you like what you're watching and you want to learn from an entrepreneur that built 8 companies and makes over $30 million a year, text me at 213-277-6208 and let's make it happen.
But you also, as you level up, you also have to upgrade your mentors. So for example, a mentor that his net worth is 500,000 and he helps you get maybe close to that, you're going to have to get another mentor that's over $1 million. Then you're going to have to get another mentor that's 10 million, 100 million, 500 million, a billion, if your goal is to make more money and create more wealth. Now, doesn't mean that they're going to help you with everything else, but you learn from other people about family. You learn about other people. How do you give back? You learn from other people, like how are you just a good human? How marketing mentors, sales mentors, there's leadership mentors, mindset mentors. I've learned so much from Tim Grover and David Goggins. So it's just everybody. You learn from everybody.
Yeah, so true. Like the ability to continue to learn, as you said, like picking your mentors, like you won't learn the family stuff probably from the guy that doesn't have a family yet, right? It's like you gotta
From Dumbbell Syl, you're
yeah.
Dumbbell Syl, you're going to learn how to take care of your
Yeah,
family.
exactly. No, it's so true, man. And before we wrap up here, I want to just ask you something that I think about a lot. I'm 24 years old now. If you were to go back in time and give yourself, but also a lot of the young entrepreneurs watching this today, what would that advice be and why?
Never drink, never do drugs, and stay
Mm.
away from women until you made it.
Mm. Punctual. I like
Yeah.
that.
100%. Because I never drank before. And once I drank, I never stopped. And that got me into trouble. 3 DUIs. I got
Wow.
3 DUIs. Now I quit liquor. So I don't drink hard liquor. I'll drink wine, but that's it. And obviously, like now we have to measure like how often and that kind of stuff. We don't overdo it. Sometimes we're not perfect.
Yeah, of course.
Once in a while you'll see me have a margarita, but I toned it down a lot. And I never did any drugs either. I tried cocaine once. I was addicted for a year, and it almost killed me.
Wow.
I blacked out everything. I mean, I could have killed people too. So that's my biggest regret. And then women, you had cocaine, liquor, and then women when you're young. That'll destroy a man. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So work on your work on yourself. Get to a certain level, make money, invest, stay away from drinking, partying, drugs. And once you're at a place where you're like, man, you know what? I have investments. I have a clear head. I'm mature. I have experience. Then maybe you find the right girl, and you get married, and you have some kids. I have a lot of sex.
So good. Before we wrap up here, but where is the best place, Albert, for everyone watching or listening to follow you, to stay connected, and really learn more about everything you have going on, including next year's awesome event?
Yeah, I mean, if you just Google Albert Syl, like you're gonna find everything about me.
Yep.
My favorite platform is Instagram. So Instagram, send me a DM, and I answer all my DMs.
Love it. I'll be sure to link all that down below.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up, I just want to say I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today. I've really loved all the content over the years, and super glad that we were able to finally do this, man.
Brother, I really enjoyed it. You're one of the greatest interviewers. Like you asked the right questions.
I appreciate that.
And you're only 24, so the future looks bright for you. Like I've been on a lot of podcasts, and sometimes they don't ask the right questions to get a great interview, a great information, great content for people watching this. But you're like a master. Like you know what to ask and how to bring the most value from people.
I appreciate that immensely.
Thank you
so much.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Booyah.
Yeah, that was